Honest thoughts about family as you enter your 20s, mid-20s, late 20s. Family, for context, very important to me. I've always been a family person, grew up in a relatively large extended family. My immediate family, my parents, my younger brother, my parents are on the younger side. We're a family of immigrants into this country. That's kind of the generic parts that make up this view, this perspective, at least I have a family. But it's been shared between people that are not necessarily immigrants or Koreans or have young parents or old parents or multiple siblings, single siblings, only child. I feel like the generic things I'm about to talk about are pretty shared amongst people our age, people my age, hopefully people you are adhering or relating to. The first thing that I want to kick off with is, how did my parents do this? That's a question that I ask myself a lot these days. Like, how did my dad, my mom, both of which got married super young, 25, 26, 24, younger than I am, had me, younger than me right now, and did a full-time family thing, transition from being a kid, essentially, early adult or whatever you want it, and then to a full-time adult and a parent. How the hell did they do this? Because we can barely take care of ourselves. I hope you relate that with me. I don't know if you guys are doing super well, but at least for me, it's rough. It's really hard being a 26-year-old. And I'm not really one to complain about life being tough. I think I've been very blessed to have a fantastic life, a very thankful life. But the struggles that are specific to your age, the early 20, mid-20s struggles are quite intense. You're unsure of where you're headed and you feel still somewhat uncomfortable with the surroundings and these new environments. You might be still setting foot on your career. You might be still in school, in your second round of school. All this to say that I think this age thing has been pushed further in our generation. And perhaps you might say that's not a fair comparison because it's a different generation. But regardless, neutralized for age, normalized for age. Someone I know very closely, my father, just to relate as a man to man, did the dad thing, did the husband thing, did the man of the family thing at my age when I'm barely in this shoebox of a room and talking into a camera, acting an age where I should theoretically be a father. So that's something wild to me. I don't know how my parents did it. Shout out to the parents of Brian John. In relation to that, the time spent with parents starts diminishing. I think if I think about 2023 alone, I probably saw them 3 times last year, during Thanksgiving, during Christmas, and then one time earlier in the year, just randomly because I wanted to visit them. If you multiply that by the number of years remaining, let's say I have 70, 60 years remaining, not that many times. So like 180 times, 210 times left to see them in lengthy periods. There's that chart I'm sure all of you guys have seen where a majority of the time, like 70, 80%, 90% of the time that you're spending with your parents happen in the first 18 years of your life. So the time remaining with the people that you spent the most time with before, the ones that are formulative to your life, the ones that care about you the most, the ones that literally made you and gave birth to you, is already in a diminishing return phase and has asymptoted, plateaued at that graph. And I think that's sad. That's really, really sad. And I'm thinking about this now. And unless I make active effort to go see them, or I move near them, and even if I do move near them, if I have my own family to take care of, having that place of connecting with your family, especially your parents, diminishing is a sad point. There's no other way to do it. I think it's logical. It's always been normalized a lot back in the hunter-gatherer phases or whatever older caveman days. I'm sure, they separate post-expansion of the village and whatever, but I think that some of that is still left inside and you want to continue to relate and connect with them, and that's lost a lot, especially in the States where it's so big and younger people like I move to these metropolitan areas away from the suburbs that I grew up in. Siblings also become adults. My brother, we're 9 years apart and he's about to enter college, and it's great. Actually, there's more to relate to him than ever before, which is just a function of us being very separated in age. But for most siblings that I've seen that are normal distance apart, 1 or 2, 3 to 4 years apart, I see them really getting close to each other as they become more similar in life stage. I think the disparity when you're younger for what 3 or 4 or even 5 years can do, especially 9 years for me, is huge. The difference between a 11-year-old and a 14-year-old is far bigger than the difference between a 26-year-old and a 28-year-old. So once those things become more normalized and you become in the adult life stage together, which I really look forward to with my brother, that really becomes a point of you relating together, you supporting your parents, you getting into this mentality of, hey, we really had it good. Let's continue to bring it to the next generation and become good uncles and aunts for our kids with each other. So that's something huge to look forward to. Third point, and I think this is to reflect on my own standing where I am and the reasons why I'm able to have these perspectives. I especially noticed this as I came to New York and got exposure to a wider variety of people from all over. Not everyone has great families. A lot of people, actually, growingly, have broken families. And frankly, as grateful as you should be to your parents for bringing you out into this world, and I'm sure many of them have tried their best, some parents aren't great. I'm just going to say it out loud. Some parents are bad parents. Like, they're bad people. They shouldn't even be parents to a certain degree. I'll go as far as say that. And they do things that are treacherous. Maybe not criminal, but borderline should be criminal. And I think parenting is one of those things where there really is no bottom line or prerequisite for doing so, and that's what makes it fruitful but also very dangerous. And it encourages bad actors to come in without much thought and reproduce and do these parenting things that they're not sure of, which I think no one really knows how to parent perfectly, but there are definitely folks that do it worse than others. And that further reemphasizes how important it is to have one, how thankful I am to have one, and how much I'm going to try to be a good father, a good husband myself as I curate a family, because I've seen the negative impacts of ones that don't have that in their life. The counterpart to that is marriage. Marriage seems unbelievably hard and harder to obtain as you get older and as you enter this era of life, because slightly people around you are getting married and you're like, how are they pulling this off? You could be in a relationship, but that jump from going to a relationship to a marriage, completely different. And not only are there logistics of coordinating the marriage itself, which is a disaster and a half based on what I've heard, it's also a function of finding someone that you want to commit to the rest of your life with and having some bedrock to build that life together. And I think that's one of the most complicated, complex, difficult decisions, but also one of the most beautiful and perhaps necessary part of our life, where two bodies become one. That really gets you to think, how do marriages happen? And goes all the way back down to my original point about how did my parents retain it and continue to retain it for this long as they go through different stages of life. And if you want to be super cynical, I think there's a initial love hormone drive that brings people together, then they gain loyalty and trust with each other, then they see benefits of marriage and wanting to start the next generation. They get the next generation, the kids become the center of their marriage and they want to focus on that, growing that, and after they're gone, now they're there to enjoy the retirement or whatever, various life stages. But all those things are in flux, obviously, in this generation of 2024. And more than that, just in general, I think it's very hard to think about having one person for the rest of your life is a challenge for sure. And shout out to those that continue to do it. I really seem to see this point about people that have good families and people that have troubled families, broken families, have be starkly different. And you see it in their actions in the most smallest things to the biggest things, whether it be of comfort, their views on family. I actually know some people that had bad families and are very challenged to have great families, and the reverse of people that have bad families and really don't want to have families for that reason. But regardless, the impact of family life, whether it be the upbringing or the current lifestyle, is immense in a person's build-up, their core, their personality, their views on family, their views on life, their views on everyday actions, which really gets me to think in your mid-20s is really when you have to start thinking about what kind of family unit. It doesn't really have to be the traditional sense of family, but the family unit that you're thinking of, how can you best light up towards that, whether it be through finances or your values or who you're surrounding yourself with, and the best way to execute on such things as you enter your late 20s, I think especially as a guy, as you go towards that like prime hump, late 20s, early 30s, get best aligned so that you can execute on the best family yourself and start actively thinking about these things. I took the time today to give some raw thoughts, at least my opinion, on my family values and how I see family going into my late 20s. I am looking, hopefully, I don't know if anyone makes us this far that I know personally, but I would like to start a family relatively soon. I think there's value in being young parents. I saw my parents benefit from that, and maybe they didn't want to be, but I love the fact that my parents are still young. And I hope to continue reflecting and let me know your thoughts on family values, how your family's doing, and what you think of family as you go into your 20s. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Let's go.